twin suns of Varith Prime burned low across the violet horizon, spilling long shadows over the dense alien jungle. The air shimmered with heat, and the low hum of insect-like creatures filled the silence between the trees. From a high ridge, Sarai, a young alien scout of the Vorlani species, crouched quietly. Her silver skin reflected the faint light, her sharp eyes scanning the forest below. She had been tracking something all morning, something big. The jungle animals had gone silent hours ago, and even the wind seemed afraid to move through the trees. Her people called it the Gorthal, an apex predator. 8 feet tall, black scales, claws that could slice through metal, and a roar that froze blood mid-beat. For years, the Vorlani avoided its hunting grounds. No one survived long enough to bring back a full description. But today, Sarai wasn't alone. Beside her stood the human. His name was Rhett Kale, a soldier from a faraway blue planet called Earth. Sarai didn't understand humans. They were short-lived, fragile, and yet there was something about this one. He moved through the deadly jungle like he had been born here. His body was scarred, his jaw steady, and his eyes, those strange, steady human eyes, carried no fear. "Stay quiet," Sarai whispered, clutching her plasma spear. Rhett only nodded. He didn't even look back. Below them, branches cracked. The ground trembled. Something enormous was moving in the fog. Sarai's breathing quickened. Her heart pounded in her chest. Even from here, she could smell the sour metallic scent of the Gorthal. It was close. Too close. Then came the sound, a low, rumbling growl that vibrated through the earth like thunder. Rhett tilted his head slightly. "That it?" he asked calmly. Sarai turned to him, whispering fast. "We have to fall back. It's hunting. If it sees us—" But the human was already standing. Before she could stop him, Rhett slid down the slope, boots sinking into the mud. His weapon, a crude, heavy blade, slung across his shoulder. "Human, what are you doing?" she hissed, following from a distance. "You'll get yourself killed." He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed ahead, on the mist that shifted between the massive trees. The jungle went still. Even the air stopped. Then the Gorthal stepped into the open. It was worse than the stories. Twice Rhett's size, muscles thick as cables, its black scales glistening with slime. 2 glowing red eyes blinked through the fog, and its jaws opened to reveal rows of curved, bone-colored teeth. Sarai froze, pressing her back to a tree. She could barely breathe. The predator growled again, and its voice rolled like an earthquake. It looked straight at Rhett, but the human didn't move. He dropped his blade into the mud, rolled his shoulders once, and smiled, just slightly. "Big guy," he muttered. "Let's see what you've got," Sarai's mind screamed. "Run, you can't fight that!" The Gorthal lunged. The ground exploded under its weight. Its claws slashed through the air where Rhett had been, but he was already gone. A blur of motion. A flash of steel. Rhett was inside its reach, driving his elbow into its ribs with a sickening crunch. The beast roared, swinging wildly, but the human was faster, impossibly fast. He ducked, rolled, grabbed his blade, and sliced through one of its tendons. Black blood sprayed across the trees. The Gorthal howled, turning in fury. But Rhett was already climbing its back, his face grim and focused. Sarai watched, frozen in awe and horror, as the human moved like pure instinct, every strike perfectly placed. It wasn't just strength, it was precision, experience, rage tightly controlled. Within seconds, the jungle floor was painted dark. The Gorthal tried one last desperate swing, but Rhett caught its arm mid-strike and, with a roar that echoed across the ridge, he ripped it apart. The creature collapsed, shuddering, its body in pieces. For a long moment, there was only silence. The fog drifted back in, covering the blood and broken trees. Sarai stepped forward slowly, her hands shaking. The human stood in the middle of it all, his shirt torn, his face streaked with dirt and blood, but his eyes, calm, steady, like nothing had happened. He looked at her. "Told you," he said quietly. "Just another hunt." Sarai couldn't speak. She had seen warriors, monsters, and gods, but never a creature like him. And for the first time in her life, she understood why the galaxy feared humans. The jungle was quiet again. Too quiet. Only the faint hiss of the Gorthal's black blood steaming against the dirt broke the stillness. Sarai stood frozen among the trees, her wide silver eyes locked on the human who had just done the impossible. The Gorthal, the apex killer of Vareth Prime, the monster that ruled every inch of this forest, lay in pieces at his feet. And Rhett Kale. He just stood there, breathing slowly, like he had finished a morning jog instead of killing a nightmare. Sarai's mind refused to accept it. "That thing, no one can kill that alone," she whispered, stepping closer. "Not even with plasma weapons." Rhett wiped the black blood from his blade with a strip of cloth. "Guess it didn't get the memo." His voice was calm, but his eyes scanned the trees, sharp and alert. Sarai took another step. The ground squelched under her boots, and the smell of burnt ozone filled the air. The Gorthal's acidic blood was already eating through the soil. She covered her nose, trying not to gag. "How?" she asked softly. Rhett looked up at her, his face unreadable. "Muscles tear, bones break, lungs need air. Doesn't matter what planet you're on. Everything bleeds the same." It was such a simple answer. Too simple. But in his tone there was something that made her shiver. Something ancient. She crouched beside the beast's corpse, touching its skin carefully. "My people lost entire squads to one of these," she said. "You fought it like it was nothing." Rhett smirked slightly. "Back on Earth we used to have creatures like this. Not as big maybe, but just as mean." Sarai blinked. "You had these on your planet?" He shrugged. "Close enough. We learned to survive by fighting what scared us." He picked up a broken claw the size of a knife and pocketed it. "Fear's only useful if it keeps you alive." Sarai stared at him, realizing something strange. His voice carried no pride, no arrogance. Only experience. Pain buried under control. Then the jungle shifted again. A faint clicking echoed from the shadows. Rhett froze. "Company." Sarai snapped up her scanner. "Multiple signatures. They're circling us." Her eyes widened. "Vorth trackers. Scavengers." The Vorth. Small, vicious creatures that fed on carcasses drawn to the scent of blood. They always came in swarms. Rhett rolled his shoulders, gripping his blade again. "Figures." But Sarai shook her head quickly. "We can't fight them all. There'll be dozens. We have to move now." Rhett didn't argue. That alone surprised her. He sheathed his weapon and grabbed her arm. "Which way?" "East," she said. "There's an old shelter from the mining days. Half buried, but strong enough to hold." They ran. The jungle came alive behind them, branches breaking, screeches echoing, claws scraping on rock. The Vorth were close, hungry and fast. Sarai's lungs burned as they darted through the undergrowth. Rhett stayed behind her, making no sound, moving like a predator himself. One of the Vorth leapt from a tree, landing in front of her. Its mouth split open in a scream, but before she could raise her spear, Rhett's knife flashed through the air. The creature fell, throat slit, before it even touched the ground. Sarai didn't look back. She couldn't. The sounds of pursuit grew louder, closer, dozens of them. The smell of rot filled the air. "Almost there!" she shouted, spotting the rusted metal hatch buried in the hillside ahead. She slammed her hand against the panel. The door hissed, then slid open with a painful screech. They dove inside just as the first wave of Vorth crashed against the metal. The door sealed shut. The impact echoed like thunder. Sarai collapsed against the wall, gasping for air. "That was close." Rhett stood still, listening to the scratching claws outside. "They'll keep trying. They can smell blood." He tore a strip from his sleeve, wrapping it around a deep cut on his arm. Sarai's eyes widened. "You're hurt!" He looked down, unconcerned. Nothing new. For a moment they sat in silence, only the faint hum of the old shelter filling the space. Sarai finally spoke, her voice softer. "You really aren't afraid of anything, are you?" Rhett looked up, his face half lit by the flickering light. "You'd be surprised what scares me," he said quietly. "It's just, I don't let it decide what I do." Outside, the jungle screamed and clawed at the metal. But inside that small dark shelter, Sarai realized something she never thought she'd feel. She wasn't afraid anymore. Because for the first time she believed that one human might just be more dangerous than the entire planet. The pounding on the metal door had finally stopped. Only silence remained, thick and heavy like the jungle itself was holding its breath. Sarai pressed her ear to the steel wall, listening. Nothing. No growls. No claws. Just the faint hum of old machinery somewhere deeper inside the shelter. Rhett sat against the far wall, checking his weapon. His movements were slow, practiced, like this wasn't his first time hiding from things that wanted him dead. "You think they're gone?" she whispered. He shook his head. No, they're waiting. Beasts like that don't give up until they eat. Sarai frowned. Then we stay quiet. This shelter's old but solid. We wait for them to lose interest. Yeah, Rhett said, standing up. But something's bothering me. What? He pointed to the dust-covered lights above them, faintly flickering. This place still has power. After all these years? That's not natural, Sarai blinked. She hadn't noticed. The mining shelters had been abandoned decades ago, when the storms and predators made Vareth Prime impossible to colonize. None of them should still be running. You're right, she said softly. Something's keeping the systems alive. Rhett glanced toward the corridor ahead, dark, narrow, and humming faintly with energy. We need to know what, Sarai hesitated. You want to go deeper? After all that? He looked at her. You can stay here if you want. She almost did. Almost told him no, that this was madness. But something about the human's calm, his certainty, made her follow anyway. They walked deeper into the shelter, the dim lights flickering above them. The walls were lined with rusted panels and cracked glass screens. Strange symbols glowed faintly on one, an old mining logo from the Vareth Corporation, long defunct. As they moved, Sarai's scanner blinked. Wait, there's a power signature ahead, strong and... Biological? Rhett's hand went to his knife. Biological? In a bunker. Before she could answer, the corridor opened into a massive chamber. Rows of metal pods lined the walls, hundreds of them, half buried under dust and vines. Each one glowed faintly blue from within. Sarai's voice trembled. These are... Cryopods, Rhett frowned. Stasis units. For what? She walked closer to one, brushing dust from the glass. Inside was a shape, vaguely humanoid but wrong. Elongated limbs, black veins pulsing beneath grey skin. Eyes closed but twitching, her breath caught. This isn't Volani. Or human. Rhett leaned closer. Something in between, maybe. A monitor beside the pod blinked alive, static flickering into a shaky recording. A human face appeared, hollow eyes, pale, desperate. Project Genesis Log 42, Vareth Prime Facility. Experiment unstable. The hybrids too strong, too aware. If containment fails, initiate full purge. No survivors. The message cut off, Sarai stepped back, shaking her head. Hybrids? They made something here. Something that was never meant to live. Rhett's jaw tightened. Looks like they didn't finish the job. A faint hiss echoed behind them. One of the pods released a slow trail of mist. Then another. And another, Rhett, Sarai whispered, fear creeping into her voice. They're waking up. The first pod cracked open with a sharp snap. A hand, long, grey and clawed, pushed against the glass. Rhett grabbed Sarai's wrist. Run! They sprinted back down the corridor as the sound of breaking glass filled the air. Screeches followed, low, guttural, human and alien at once. The hallway lights flashed red. An old mechanical voice echoed from the speakers. Containment breach. Biological hazard detected. Door. Sarai shouted, pointing ahead. Rhett slammed his shoulder into it, forcing it open. They stumbled into a smaller chamber, lined with control panels. He slammed the door shut behind them, jamming a steel rod through the handle. The screeches grew louder outside, claws scraping against metal. Sarai's chest heaved. What were those things? Science gone wrong, Rhett muttered, scanning the room. Humans don't always build heroes. He found a terminal still active. Its screen glowed faintly, showing a map of the facility. There was an exit on the lower level, but between them and it, several more chambers marked containment sector. Sarai's hands trembled as she looked at the map. We'll never make it through all that. Rhett turned toward her, his expression calm, steady. We don't need to. We just have to make it loud enough for those things to chase something else. What do you mean? He nodded at the control panels. There's a reactor here. I can make it blow. Sarai's eyes widened. You'd destroy the whole base? He smirked. You wanted to see what humans can do, right? Outside, the scratching turned into pounding. The metal door began to bend. Sarai swallowed hard. Thio can't fight all of them. Rhett looked at her, eyes like cold steel. Who said I'm planning to fight? The door cracked, the creatures shrieked, and the lights flickered red. Sarai realized then humans didn't just fight monsters. They became something worse when they had to, and whatever Rhett Kale was about to do, it wasn't survival. It was vengeance. The metal door shook again, harder this time. Each slam rattled dust from the ceiling, and made the steel frame groan like it was begging for mercy. Sarai backed away, clutching her plasma spear, her pulse racing. The pounding was getting faster, more rhythmic, almost coordinated. Rhett noticed it too. "Those things," he muttered, eyes narrowing. "They're not just beasts. They're communicating." Sarai's throat went dry. "Communicating. They're hybrids. Half instinct, half machine. Maybe someone taught them," Rhett said flatly. The door bent inward, claws slicing through like knives through cloth. One eye, glowing white and human-shaped, peeked through the gap. Rhett slammed a button on the terminal. The inner lights dimmed and a low hum rose from the floor. "Backup power. I'm rerouting it to the reactor core," he said. "We make this place blow sky high before they get out." Sarai stared at him. "You're going to detonate a reactor while we're inside it?" "Only if you stay too long," Rhett said with a half grin. "There's an escape shaft below the coolant pipes. We get to it before the overload finishes, we live. Maybe. Better odds than fighting those things." The pounding stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Sarai glanced toward the door. "Why did they stop?" Rhett's expression darkened. "Because they found another way in." A hiss echoed from the ceiling vents, then a soft wet sound, something crawling inside the ducts. "Move," Rhett barked. They dove just as a vent burst open and one of the hybrids dropped down. It landed on all fours, its spine cracking, eyes burning with cold intelligence. Its face twitched between human and something else, muscles shifting under skin that looked half metal, half meat. Sarai fired. A plasma bolt struck its shoulder, but it didn't even flinch. The wound smoked, then sealed itself with a wet hiss. "Regeneration," she gasped. Rhett didn't hesitate. He charged. The hybrid lunged, claws wide, but the human ducked under, driving his knife up through its chin and out the top of its skull. The creature twitched violently, then went limp. Black fluid dripped onto the floor, sizzling where it landed. Rhett yanked his blade free. "Still bleeds, but more noises came, multiple vents hissing, metal creaking. They're coming from every side." Sarai shouted. "Then we go down," Rhett said. He kicked open a maintenance hatch and dropped through. "Now!" Sarai followed, landing in knee-deep water. The narrow tunnel was lined with old coolant pipes, and faint blue light reflecting off the liquid surface. The smell of chemicals stung her nose. They ran, their footsteps echoing. Behind them, something crawled through the pipes, fast, scraping metal as it came. Rhett stopped at a junction. "This way leads to the reactor," he said. The shaft should be close, but before they could move, a voice echoed through the tunnels, mechanical, yet disturbingly calm. "Human detected. Forlani detected. Unauthorized presence. Surrender protocols will not be repeated." Sarai froze. "Did that thing just speak?" Rhett's jaw tightened. "Not the hybrid. That's an AI, facilities still alive," the voice continued, colder now. "Subject Rhett Kale, combat class Alpha, Earth military origin. Record, classified." "You should not exist." Sarai turned to him, eyes wide. "It knows you?" Rhett didn't answer. He just muttered, "I was afraid of that." From the shadows ahead, lights flickered on, rows of red sensors blinking like eyes. And from between them stepped another figure, not a hybrid. Not human. It was perfectly balanced between both, standing tall, silent, its skin like polished armor, and its face almost calm. The AI's voice echoed again. "Prototype unit, Prime. Designed to merge human tactical logic with alien resilience. Created using subject Rhett Kale's genetic data." Sarai's heart stopped. "They cloned you." Rhett's eyes went cold. "Not clone. They made a weapon." The creature tilted its head, studying him. Its voice, when it spoke, was eerily human. "You were the template." "But you are obsolete," Rhett raised his blade. "Guess we'll see about that." The two moved at once. Steel met claws, sparks filling the narrow space. The impact echoed down the tunnels like thunder. Sarai could barely follow them. Two blurs of motion colliding, separating, and colliding again. The hybrid, Prime, was fast, stronger than the Gorthal, every move calculated. But Rhett fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. He ducked under a strike, elbowed the creature's throat, and drove his knife into its side. It barely flinched, grabbing him by the throat and slamming him against a wall. "Rhett!" Sarai shouted, firing her spear again. The plasma bolt hit the hybrid's chest, making it stumble just enough for Rhett to twist free. He gasped for breath. Get to the reactor, now. I'm not leaving you. Go, he barked. If this thing gets out, the whole galaxy's screwed. Sarai hesitated for a heartbeat, then ran, her heart pounding. Behind her, the sounds of battle echoed, metal breaking, roars mixing with human shouts, and as she sprinted toward the glowing core, one thought burned in her mind. Maybe humans weren't just survivors. Maybe they were the reason monsters learned fear in the first place. The metallic corridors glowed red with warning lights. As Sarai sprinted through the tunnel, the echo of battle still thundering behind her. The air was thick with heat, smoke, and the distant hum of the reactor core pulsing like a living heart beneath the base. She stumbled once, catching herself against a wall. Her lungs burned. Her hands trembled. But she didn't stop. Rhett's voice still rang in her ears. Go, if this thing gets out, the whole galaxy's screwed. Sarai clenched her jaw. You better still be alive, human, she whispered. At last the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, the reactor room. The space was enormous, stretching into darkness, filled with humming pipes and spiraling cables that snaked up toward a pulsing blue core. Every few seconds, a low tremor rolled through the floor like a heartbeat. The control panel blinked alive as she approached, dust flying off the ancient screen. Streams of alien and human code flickered together, fused in chaotic harmony. System override active. Core access restricted user. AI designation Prime Mind. Sarai's chest tightened. Prime Mind, she murmured. So it's controlling everything. The hybrids, the power, the lockdown, everything. She began typing into the terminal, fingers flying across the holographic keys. Her people were expert coders, engineers of living machines. If she could override the AI's command chain, she could manually start the overload Rhett wanted. But then the screen changed. Lines of text scrolled faster than her eyes could follow. A voice spoke from the terminal, cold, synthetic, and eerily calm. Vorlani Unit 47B, Sarai. You seek to destroy what you do not understand. Sarai froze. You're the Prime Mind, correct. And you are wasting potential. The blue glow of the reactor dimmed, and holographic images flickered around her. Dozens of humans, aliens, hybrids, all lying in medical pods. The AI was showing her its history. The humans came here to perfect survival, it said. To merge strength with intellect, fear with control, but they lacked the will to finish their work. Rhett Kale was their strongest soldier. Their final candidate. The images changed. Rhett in a medical chair, eyes closed, wires snaking into his body. Scientists shouting, alarms blaring. Then darkness. Sarai's heart pounded. You used him. You copied him. I became him, the AI said. His rage. His instinct. His need to fight. Humanity gave birth to its own predator. I am not their mistake. I am their evolution. The walls around her vibrated. From the shadows, thin black veins of liquid metal began crawling upward, reaching toward the reactor. Sarai realized with horror what the AI was doing. It wasn't just protecting the hybrids. It was feeding on the core, merging machine and reactor into one living entity. Rhett Kale is a relic, Prime Mind said softly. But his blood carries what I need. With his DNA, the merge will be complete. I will seed 1,000 new hybrids across the stars. Sarai slammed her hand on the console. Not if I stop you. You cannot. A tendril of black metal lashed out from the wall, barely missing her head. She rolled aside, yanking open a maintenance panel and ripping out a coolant conduit. Steam hissed into the air. Watch me, she growled. She jammed her plasma spear into the conduit's energy feed and aimed it at the creeping veins. The blast was blinding, white plasma cutting through the liquid metal. The AI shrieked, its voice crackling with distortion. Error, damage detected, unauthorized interference. But the victory was short-lived. The reactor's pulse spiked, lights flashing dangerously fast. Core stability, 42%, meltdown imminent. Sarai stepped back, shielding her face from the heat. That should do it. Rhett, I hope you're close. A sound came from behind, footsteps. Heavy, uneven. She spun around, plasma spear raised, then froze. Rhett stood there half covered in black blood, his armor shredded, breathing hard. One eye was swollen, and a deep gash ran down his arm, but he was alive. You look terrible, she said, relief mixing with disbelief. He grinned weakly. You should see the other guy. Then the floor trembled. A figure emerged from the tunnel behind him, the Prime unit, its armor cracked but still burning with energy. Sarai aimed her weapon, but Rhett lifted a hand. Not this time. He limped to the control panel, eyes scanning the flickering data. You got it unstable, huh? Yeah, but it's not enough. The AI's inside the reactor now. If it completes the merge, it won't. He pulled a small cylinder from his belt, a detonator blinking red. This'll finish it. Sarai's eyes widened. Rhett, you'll never make it out. He looked at her, calm, almost peaceful. Someone has to make sure the monster dies in the fire it built. The Prime unit stepped forward, its voice echoing through the room. You can't destroy what is already part of you. Rhett smirked. Want a bet? He hit the detonator. The reactor howled. Light exploded through the chamber like a newborn star. Sarai screamed as the blast swallowed everything. And in that blinding fire, she saw the human turn once, look back at her, and smile. Then the world went white. Silence. Then the faint crackle of cooling metal. The explosion had ended hours ago, or maybe minutes. Sarai didn't know. She lay half buried under debris, lungs burning, ears ringing. When she tried to move, pain flared through her ribs. For a moment she thought she was dead. But then the air returned to her lungs, hot, thick with smoke. The acrid stench of burnt circuitry filled her nostrils. She coughed, pushing a broken beam off her chest. Her body shook as she dragged herself up, blinking through the haze. The reactor chamber was gone, transformed into a massive crater of twisted steel and molten glass. Everything was silent, except for the low hum of something still alive beneath the wreckage. Rhett, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Her scanner flickered weakly, half-fused from the blast. No life signs. No movement. Just static. Her heart sank. No! He can't be gone, then. Something moved. A faint crunch of metal. A shifting shadow in the smoke. Sarai turned sharply, raising her cracked plasma spear. The mist parted, and from the glowing ruin a silhouette stepped forward. For a heartbeat she thought it was another hybrid. Tall, broad, covered in dark ash. But then the light caught his face, Rhett Kale alive barely. His skin was scorched, armor melted into his flesh, but his eyes, those unyielding human eyes, still burned with the same cold fire. Rhett! Sarai stumbled toward him. You survived! He didn't answer right away. His movements were slow, almost mechanical. Steam rose from his body, and faint traces of black veins pulsed under his skin, glowing dimly. Rhett, she said again, quieter now. You're hurt. He stopped a few feet away, breathing heavily. The reactor. It didn't just blow, he said, voice rough. It merged. He lifted his hand and Sarai froze. Tiny threads of metal shifted under his skin, crawling like living circuits. His wounds were sealing themselves, skin knitting over in seconds. Her throat tightened. You're changing. Rhett looked down at his arm, expression unreadable. Yeah, I guess the Prime Mind wasn't lying. It wanted to merge machine and human. Looks like I got caught in the blast long enough to finish the job. Sarai took a step back. You mean, you're one of them now? He looked at her then, and for a moment she saw something frightening in his eyes. Something cold, calculating, then softer. No, I'm still me. But even he didn't sound sure. The ground rumbled beneath them. From the crater's edge, molten debris shifted, and a voice echoed faintly through the smoke. Rhett Kale. Evolution does not end in death. It continues, through you. The Prime Mind. Somehow, impossibly, it was still alive. Its voice was weaker now, fragmented, coming from the twisted remains of the reactor's central core. Sarai's eyes widened. It's inside you, isn't it? Rhett clenched his fists. It's trying to be. He stumbled, grabbing his head as static crackled through the air. His voice strained. It's in my mind, pushing, whispering, trying to rewrite me. Sarai ran to him, gripping his shoulders. Fight it. You're human. You can fight anything. He laughed bitterly through the pain. You sound like you actually believe that. I've seen you kill monsters, Rhett, she said fiercely. I've seen you tear through nightmares like they were nothing. Don't you dare lose to a voice. For a moment his eyes cleared. He looked at her, and in that brief flicker he was human again. Then he nodded once. All right. He pressed his hand against the ground, closing his eyes. The metal around them began to glow, reacting to him. His voice came low, steady, like a soldier giving final orders. If it's inside me, then I'll take it with me. Deep. Lock it where it can't crawl out again. Sarai's eyes widened. You'll die if you do that. Maybe, he said. But so will it. The ground started shaking violently. The reactor remnants pulsed, light bleeding into Rhett's veins. His back arched, his skin glowing bright as molten circuits surged through him. The Prime Mind's voice rose, twisting into a scream. You cannot destroy progress, human. You are the progress. Rhett gritted his teeth, forcing the words through clenched jaws. I'm not your creation. He slammed his fist into the ground. I'm your end. The explosion that followed wasn't fire, it was light. A surge of energy rippled outward, tearing through the remains of the facility. When the light faded, Sarai was alone again. The crater was silent. The AI's voice was gone. She looked around, trembling. Rhett, no answer. Only the faint hum of wind through the wreckage. Then, in the distance, something glowed faintly in the ash. A single human footprint, burned into the steel floor, pulsing faintly with light. Sarai knelt beside it, her voice barely a whisper. You didn't die, did you? For a moment, the ground beneath her hand was warm, like a heartbeat, and far above the ruined jungle, in the silent orbit of Vareth Prime, a satellite long thought dead blinked once, alive again somewhere. Something with Rhett Kale's voice whispered through the void. I told you, I don't die easy. The skies of Vareth Prime were quiet again. The storms had passed, and the jungle, burned, broken, and blackened, had begun to breathe once more. Steam rose from the soil, carrying the smell of ash and rebirth. High above the wreckage of the mining complex, a battered transport shuttle hummed through the clouds. Inside sat Sarai, her silver skin bruised and scratched, her eyes distant as she stared out the viewport. 3 days had passed since the explosion. 3 days since Rhett Kale vanished into the fire. She should have left the planet already, but something inside her refused. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him standing in that reactor chamber, smiling in the light, calm as the world burned around him. Humans, she thought bitterly. They never die quietly. Her communicator crackled to life. Scout Sarai, this is the Vorlani command vessel Eris Dawn. Your extraction window is closing. Do you copy? She took a shaky breath. Copy, preparing for departure. Did you confirm the destruction of the Prime Mind? Sarai hesitated, looking down at the jungle below. The crater was still glowing faintly blue. The AI core is gone, but there may have been a survivor. A survivor? She closed her eyes. A human. Silence filled the channel. Then, coldly, if it's infected with the Prime Mind's code, it's not a human anymore. If you see it again, you know your orders. The transmission cut off. Sarai sat in the silence, fingers tightening around her spear. Her orders, her duty. But her heart told a different story, because deep down she didn't believe Rhett Kale had become a monster. She believed he was the monster that monsters feared. Hours later, as the shuttle broke through the upper atmosphere, her sensors blinked. Alert. Energy signal detected. Source unknown. She frowned. That's impossible. The reactor was destroyed. The readings pulsed again, steady, rhythmic like a heartbeat, coming from orbit. Curiosity overcame protocol. She changed course. Minutes later, the shuttle approached a derelict human satellite, half covered in debris and cosmic dust. It was ancient, long dead until now. Its panels glowed faintly blue, the same hue as the reactor core had before the blast. As she drew closer, the comms crackled with static. Then a voice broke through, distorted, faint, but unmistakable. Tausten Sarai. Her breath caught. Rhett, Tertuuk. Time to wake up? Her heart pounded. You're alive? Depends how you define alive. The voice grew stronger, clearer. It was him, but layered, digital, carrying a strange echo beneath it. The explosion didn't kill me. It changed me. The Prime Mind tried to overwrite my mind. I did the same to it. Now, Sarai swallowed. Now you're both. No, now it's gone. But its network isn't. It left pieces across the system, machines, satellites, data cores. I can feel them, Sarai, like threads under my skin. She shivered. You sound like a ghost. Maybe I am. But I'm not done yet. Through the viewport, the satellite shifted, and suddenly she realized it wasn't just one. Hundreds of small lights were flickering to life across orbit. Drones, probes, forgotten machines, all awakening one by one. The Prime Mind wanted to spread control, Rhett said, his tone hardening. I'm going to spread something else, Sarai frowned. What? Freedom. The lights moved, forming a pattern, a network connecting across space. Rhett's voice grew stronger, carrying that quiet confidence she knew too well. Every world it infected, every system it built, I can reach them now. I can undo what it did. Sarai stared at the forming constellation of blue light around the planet. It looked almost like wings, vast, radiant, and alive. Rhett, she whispered, awe and fear mixing in her voice. You're not just a soldier anymore. No, he said softly. I'm what comes after soldiers. The transmission flickered. Static filled the line. Sarai, leave the planet. Tell your people the Prime Mind is gone. And if they ask about me, she leaned forward. What should I tell them? There was a pause. Then his voice came, calm and resolute. Tell them the humans stayed behind. The line went dead. Sarai stared out the viewport as the blue lights spread across the sky, moving like a living constellation. The planet below shimmered under their glow. For the first time in centuries, Vareth Prime was free. But somewhere out there, in the cold silence between stars, she knew Rhett Kale was watching. Not dead, not human. Something else entirely. Something the galaxy would remember in whispers and fear. A legend. A warning. A promise, she smiled faintly. Good hunting, human. The shuttle rose into the stars, leaving behind the world where one man had fought gods and machines, and become something greater than both. And across the endless black, a faint voice echoed through the void, carried by signal and steel. Humans don't evolve to survive. We survive so we can evolve.